Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to a guide to making better choices, Acharya. So I saw this, it's like, well, it'd be nice to make the better choice in life. So I'm kind of curious of what this guide is, so let's go ahead and get started.
I want to commit suicide. I'm looking for some poison. Right? I don't know where the pharmacy is. My gut feel is the pharmacy is on the left. I Google to find out where all the pharmacies are in my neighborhood. I also call up my best friends to ask where the pharmacies are. And my question is, where is the nearest pharmacy? And my question is, where is poison available for the cheapest? And Amazon comes and tells me there is a big discount on exotic poisons. But am I even asking the right question? Is it about where the pharmacy is located? Is it about where I would get the most economical poison? Or should the right question be, is life worth living? But that question is never answered because it is never asked. Google will tell you only what you enter in the search box. People will advise you only what you ask them. There's hardly a person who can go beyond his brief and expand the scope of the answer beyond the question. Most of your advisors won't do that. Their answers will be in the same dimension as the question. It requires somebody very, very loving and risk-taking to give you an answer you never asked for. You see, even when we seek advices, we actually limit the scope of the advice. We tell the other person, we want the answer in yes or no. We want the answer only about this topic. I want the answer only in my context, my own framework. What if the context itself is wrong? What if the framework itself is of ignorance? No answer will be then good enough. All answers will just lead to your eventual demise. So learn to ask the right questions. Why am I going for this? Why am I dropping this? Why am I picking this? That would seem very taxing to begin with because we are accustomed to unconscious behavior. In unconscious behavior, we just go by our impulses, and the mind has developed that habit. Consciousness appears like a burden. Asking questions appears like a put-off. You just were about to plunge into pleasure of some kind, and suddenly you are reminded to ask a question. And the question is a put-off because now you cannot dive into pleasure as you probably wanted to just a minute back. But these questions are important because your life is important. Career too is important only because life is important, no? If you are already dead, would you want a career? No? You can have a life without career, but you cannot have a career if you are dead. So it's obvious which of these is more important. Spirituality is not about having no career and running away to the jungle. Spirituality is about having the right career. Gautam Buddha himself was a startup founder, a manager, a leader, an entrepreneur, a statesman, an evangelist, all rolled into one, no? Or did he have no career? He had a great career. He founded a huge Sangh, an organization. So the career is there. The question is what kind of career you are choosing. Is there alignment between your deep inner need and your outer occupation? Your outer occupation has to be aligned to your inner need. Is there an alignment? And if there is no alignment, what are you doing in life? Hmm? Gut feel, you talked of, that gut feel is a very conditioned thing. So, gut feel can be right, gut feel can be wrong, it can help you, it can delude you. Gut feel just comes from the accumulation of your past experiences. It has some value, obviously, but it is not something you can just rely on. You have to rely on the right questions. And those who have a stake in keeping you in bondage will not encourage you to ask the right questions.
But where is the right questions, though? I mean, wouldn't the right questions come from your past experiences? Because where do you derive the right questions from, though? From there. So my assumption is like, I need to know how to get to a certain place. So the right question would be, because last time I didn't ask the right question. I went somewhere and I got lost. So the right question is to ask ask someone, where do I need to go? Or is there just is there? He keeps saying about asking the right questions. I don't disagree with that, but where does it come from? Isn't it not usually from past experiences to because you learn from your past experience to ask the right questions so you know what to look for. But if you don't have past experiences, then you don't know, I don't believe you know what the right questions would be. So, hmm, it's kind of hard to, how do I say, make an example of someone just doing something without. I guess there are some examples. Like there are some people out there who just like doing things, and until something bad happens to them, they don't really ask questions. They just do it. Um, like for example, just going skydiving, for example, right? You go skydiving and then your parachute doesn't open, but your backup chute does, and you're like, holy crap, almost didn't quite make it there. And you're like, you talk to the guy, and it's like, why did my main chute open? It's like, well, I packed it right. I believe. You're like, you believe? What do you mean you believe? You're certified, right? No, not exactly. It's like, okay, next time I go to a parachute dive, I need to make sure I ask if they're certified. So kind of like that. Not the best example, but it's I think a good enough. So there are a lot of people out there who tend to, I guess you could say, kind of like jump the boat or act without thinking and learn the hard way to ask the questions. But, you know, especially when we're children, when we have no experience, there's no asking the right questions. It's literally as children we tend to just do and learn the hard way. So I do believe, what is it? When we ask the right questions, it's generally speaking always off a past experience. So, an accident happens, you don't want an accident to happen again, so you start asking questions of how to do things so that an accident doesn't happen again, even though the accident is not related to what you're getting into. So, for example, ride a bicycle and you don't know how to operate it and you got into an accident. So now you start asking questions: how do I operate a stove? How do I operate a car? How do I operate these things? It's based on kind of a past experience. Don't get me wrong. It's not necessarily to say that everything has to operate off of past experience, but I do believe majority, I think, is based off of past experience. Let's see what it said here. Question goes. Okay, here we go. Let's start right here.
Gut feel just comes from the accumulation of your past experiences. It has some value, obviously, but it is not something you can just rely on.
I mean, I get what it's saying about the gut feeling. There have people who have gut feelings, and it's been right. I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know where majority of gut feelings are right, but anytime you hear someone, oh, I had a gut feeling and I was right, I believe you hear that more than if someone said, oh, I had a gut feeling, but I was wrong. Because at that point, it's like, well, I was just wrong anyway. But if you had a gut feeling you're right, you're like, oh, that's amazing. I can't believe I got that right. So you tend to speak more about what you got right than what you got wrong. So what the actual percentages of your gut feeling being correct might be actually pretty low, but you hear about it like mostly in the positive because, yeah, man, I was just walking down the street, I had this weird gut feeling. I stopped and a train went by. It's like, oh my gosh, I almost got hit. You'll hear those things then versus like, yeah, man, I had a gut feeling, but nothing happened. Like that's not a very exciting news. Um, but not everything about your past is a gut feeling, though. I don't believe so.
You have to rely on the right questions. And those who have a stake in keeping you in bondage will not encourage you to ask the right questions.
Yes, very much so.
The HR person interviewing you will not want you to ask uncomfortable questions, right? You ask uncomfortable questions, you drop the offer. She does not want that. But you must know what is important to you. Once
Okay.
you are dead, you won't be checking in, right? Once you are dead, you won't be reporting for work. And there is only one life that you have. So be very careful.
Okay, so does Acharya Prashant believe in rebirth in terms of, I believe all Hinduism believes in rebirth. I believe. I'm not sure, but as far as I can tell, it seems like at least the majority of them does, if not all of them. At the same time, I see it towards the end there. It says you ask the right questions because what's most important to you. So whatever's most important to you, make sure you ask the right questions and how you get to what is important to you. Hmm. I had more to say than just that, but then I was thinking about a few other things of what he said here, or the questions I had about his does he believe in rebirth? Because I know there's kind of this duality of beliefs that I have or that I see here. The obvious that there's constant rebirth, that you're never just born once, and the fact that, like Acharya here says, that you only have one life. I mean, that's typical worldview of people, is that you have this one life to live and that's it. Whereas in terms of Hinduism, well, you'll be reborn, because there is only one consciousness. So it's not like this is your last life. You'll be reborn again. But I want to dig a little bit deeper into that. I do believe you have one life. Now, mind you, it's this body, of course. The consciousness in this body that it experience is only one life, even though the consciousness itself experienced many lives. But the problem is the fact that the consciousness does not, how to say, remember. Again, depending on your beliefs. I don't know how Acharya. I don't know what his belief systems are. I know he believes in I believe the Bhagavad Gita. I believe. He seems to believe in Jnana Yoga. So, yeah, Jnana Yoga. That which you are not. Again, I know he believes in a sense the Atma, which is your pure consciousness, as he says. There is consciousness and pure consciousness, and I believe Acharya believes that consciousness itself is ego. Pure consciousness of itself is actual consciousness. So again, in terms of Advaita Vedanta, there's only consciousness and then the ego. Consciousness and pure consciousness are one and the same, but I believe in Acharya Prashant's case, consciousness itself is actually the ego, and then pure consciousness is consciousness. Um, This is the thing that I'm trying to figure out. So whenever he speaks and he talks about these things, I understand what he's trying to say. Um, so here's an interesting thing about rebirth. Does he believe in rebirth? I do believe he did have a video about the science of rebirth, but then he says you have one life to live right here. So does he believe in rebirth? Anyways, maybe I should watch that video. Maybe I should do a reaction to that video and see if he does believe in rebirth. And also the fact of the Bhakti Yoga. In one of the other videos, he talked about. Anyways, Bhakti Yoga doesn't seem like he believes in that. I'm not sure. So anyway, going back to the topic of the video, making better, asking the right questions. And you need to ask the right questions because you need to figure out what's important in your life and then ask the right questions for that important thing in your life. And as far as the subject on this matter is, your life is important, so you need to ask questions about your life. As far as I understood it, talks about, at the very beginning about self-ending, and the question that's not usually asked is life worth living? Strangely enough, in the Western world, a lot of people who, well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but as far as I hear, they do make the statement that life is not worth living, and that's the reason why they do it. So the question is answered in their mind, but I wonder, like, I don't know if this is something in India where maybe they don't ask that question. I'm not sure. Um, what if they say that? What if they say life is not worth living? And what did this say? The most important thing to them is not worth it anymore. Again, I'm genuinely curious. Um, I know he says you have to ask the question whether you have to ask important questions, but like, I guess, what if they answer that? Like, what if the most important thing to them is no longer worth it? Then what? And I do believe this is a full talk in terms of the question of what that guy asked. Because honestly, for me, I don't know what the right answer is. I mean, I don't think there is necessarily a one right answer that answers all of them, but there is a right answer somewhere. And maybe that's what Acharya's here trying to say, is the fact that you have to ask the right questions to find that right answer. So anyways, that's my reaction to A Guide to Making Better Choices. Did I come out? I mean, I guess it is. What is important in your life, and know how to ask the right questions for it. A Guide to Making Better Choices. What is it that is important in your life? And when you figure that out, know how to ask the right questions. Okay. Okay. I was going to say I didn't come out quite knowing, but after thinking about it just for a second, I get it. Do we have to have something important in our lives? Or can we not just live life? This is something that I guess I kind of appreciate about Sadhguru, where he says that, you don't have to necessarily have anything important in your life to just enjoy life. I have lived like that. I have. It's not to say there's nothing important, but I don't have to worry about what those important things are. I can let them be, so I can enjoy life. I don't have to worry about what's important in life, and maybe that's the reason why. Anyways, I said a lot. So if you like my content, please consider subscribing, thumbs up the sound down below. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next vid.